In. Welcome, everyone.
Hello, Peter. Nice to see you.
Nice to see everybody.
Mike?
We're welcoming you in with cameras on, mics off. So we will open up the mics when it comes time for a chat with Mike. But we'll keep your camera. I encourage you to turn on speaker view, or sorry, gallery view as well. And that'll let you see everyone's smiling faces.
Hi, Anita.
Nice to see everybody. We've got, there we go. Oh, people are coming in and out. Hi, Belinda. Nice to see you. Thank you all for your flexibility with our timing today, and sorry for the shift. It's totally Mike's fault, just for the record.
True. Yeah.
I don't know whose idea it was to arrange an interview with a principal in late May or early June, but anyway, that's the way it goes. So thanks all for your flexibility and joining us today and coming back at 1 o'clock. Appreciate that very much. Again, if you're just joining us, welcome. You've got your mics off. Encourage you to have your cameras on. Turn on your speaker view so we can see each other. Not sure how many people we're going to have this afternoon. We had almost 40 people signed up for our 11 o'clock, which is phenomenal. So excited about that. Our numbers may be a little smaller this morning as we shift. Hi, Andrea. Welcome. Nice to see you. And we'll give people another quick second or two to jump in, and then we'll get going. Just a reminder that we are recording today, and Delbert, you're on. I'll leave that with Delbert. You can't see Delbert; he's on mute, and he's got his camera off today. But our colleague Delbert's running the technology. So Delbert, thanks for that. And you'll see actually he's just posted a comment there in the chat room. If you have any thoughts or comments along the way, we welcome your comments in there. Why don't we jump in, because we've always got a commitment at Forcible Words of being on time. So we've started on time, and we'll make sure we're out of here, by 7 o'clock tonight. So settle in. Hope you've all got some drinks. But we'll get going and make sure that we can get on with our afternoons. So thanks everybody for being here today. This is so great, and we'll quickly touch base about the Forcible Words, but this movement and this conversation around servant leadership is growing, and I'm just so humbled by that, and I'm so grateful for you giving up your time today to join us, and for Mike joining us as well. And we'll give Mike a formal introduction in a bit. And as I say, my colleague Delbert is running the technology today, so thanks to him. I'm just going to do some quick introductions. While I'm doing that, let me plant two questions with you. What teacher that you know has made an impact on you? And I guess that could be as a peer or as a student. So what teachers made an impact on you? These are just questions to reflect on. We may circle back to them. And then attached to that is, how would you describe their leadership style? So what teachers made an impact on you, and how would you describe their leadership style? If you've got pen or paper or keyboard in front of you and you want to make a few notes about that, I'm going to open it up just for people to share if they'd like. No pressure, but you're certainly welcome to. As we do with all our 4 simple word meetings, we've got 2 acknowledgements up front. The first is a land acknowledgement. And wherever you're sitting today, behind your screen, whatever community you're in, there were communities that were here long before us. And those communities were vibrant and strong, and they were prosperous, and they had teachers and learners. And I think it's really important for us to remember that no matter which community we're in today, that has been handed to us from cultures and peoples, and we are handing our community off to future cultures and peoples. And we have a responsibility to be stewarding the land, water, and air, and quite frankly, we need to get better at that. So a quick reminder, there were lots of, as I say, cultures here before us. It's important we celebrate those and make sure we're honoring those as we're handing our community off. The other piece attached to that, of course, is that truth has to come before reconciliation. So I thank you for that. The other acknowledgement, and this one, it's more of a statement of fact, and today it's really hitting me harder than normal, and that is the fact that I was born white, male, middle class in Southern Ontario in the 1970s. When you combine that with the fact that I am happily married to my beautiful wife, Melanie, I check just about every box of privilege. And related to that today, I just want to say how broken my heart is. And I want to ground us in that conversation quickly around what I'm seeing, what I'm seeing on what we're all seeing on social. And just how sad I feel about that, how broken I feel about that. And as a white person with all this privilege, how I'm struggling with that. One of the reasons that I'm leaning into Forcible Words is because I firmly believe that servant leadership is such a powerful tool to help us right so many of those wrongs. And I believe that in my heart of hearts. So I'm coming at this today. It's feeling kind of heavy for me, and I'm glad we've got Mike here to have a really interesting conversation, and I want it to be a good one. I just want to kind of acknowledge the context of today and what's happening in the States and in Toronto, and it's wrong and it bothers me. And my hope is that the more we talk about servant leadership, the more we model what servant leadership looks like, the more change we all can be making. So if I need to be held accountable on any of my privilege at all, I encourage you to do so in the chat or afterwards. And it's my acknowledgement that I've come to the screen on a very different path than many of yours, and I'm doing my best to help other voices sing as loudly as Mike can. So I thank you for that time. Quick, simple words 101 for those of you that haven't joined us before, and we're going to get to Mike soon, I promise. Very quickly, my grandmother, Elsie, was awesome. I loved my grandmother. She was strong. She was courageous. She was fierce. She was well ahead of her time in terms of the role that she played in both her home and family. And she was one of the huge influences on my life. I'm the feminist I am today because of Elsie. And she taught me early on in my life 4 simple words that, to be honest with you, have fundamentally changed my life at home, in my community, how I try to, being a boss here at Pearl Street, an employer at Pearl Street. And I turned 50 in March, and I wanted to take this opportunity of turning 50 and do something with these 4 words that Elsie has shared with me, because they have, as I say, they've had profound impact. And they're not rocket science, and if you've been to the site, you've already seen them, but the 4 words are, it's not about me. It's not about me. And those words have driven pretty much all aspects of my life, and have, as I say, has such a huge and positive impact that Forcible Words is started out as a bit of a vanity project, to be honest with you, to share this conversation. And what I hope it is evolving into is a conversation around what servant leadership looks like. And so that's where these forums have come up. And, Forcible Words is my learning journey this year. And I'm inviting really smart people to come in, have a conversation with me. And it turns out other people want to join that. So I'm just so humbled and appreciative of your time to join us today. So this is Forcible Words Forum number 3. And we are focusing on this idea of what servant leadership looks like in education. And for that, I've got a lot of educators in my life. My wife is a teacher, and I've had the chance to meet a lot of great ones. And someone who I have admired and respected and really felt was a great servant leader, even knowing him from afar, was Mike Anderson. And so we reached out to Mike to see if he would like to join us in this conversation. He said yes, and I'm just so appreciative to have Mike here. So Mike, on behalf of the group, welcome today, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Kurt. It's my pleasure.
Really quickly, a little background on Mike, and then we'll jump into our questions. Here's his bio. Mike loves learning. He holds a philosophy degree from McMaster University and a Bachelor of Ed from University of Windsor. He's now working as principal at Brant Avenue Public School and the Upper Grand District School Board. And in past, he's been an instructional coach, a curriculum leader, an elementary teacher with the board. He's taught additional qualification courses for York U, Wilfrid Laurier University, and is a member of the Guelph Wellington Adverse Childhood Experiences Coalition. And I think we may touch on that, some of the work that Mike does outside his classroom. His hobbies include playing hockey, sleight of hand magic, heads up. There might be some sleight of hand magic in your immediate future. I'm very excited with that. He's especially fond of his 2 children and his first wife. I love that line. That's really good. And Mike's mom told him many times that he has a face for radio. So the fact that we've let him on a Zoom call has really made his day. So ladies and gentlemen, Mike Anderson, let's give it up for Mike.
Thanks, Kurt.
And sorry, just before you jump in, Mike, full disclosure, Mel, my wife, teaches at Mike's school, and that's one of the ways that I've seen Mike's leadership in action. And I've been assured by all legal authorities that Mel's job is intact regardless of what happens today. So that's a good news story.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah, so I'll start by giving some context to
welcome, Mike. Thanks.
The school I work at right now. Brant Ave is a school in Northeast Guelph, 250 students, and it's a pretty diverse community with about 40%, 30 to 40% of our students living in poverty. There are 27 staff, and that includes 15 teachers, 2 early childhood educators, 5 educational assistants, 1 child and youth counselor, 2 custodians, and a sassy office coordinator that keeps me on my toes, and myself. So it is a building that I've been at for 4 years, and I love. Has this incredible sense of community and family, and with a team of people that is inspiring to work with. And I want to be really clear here. The Brant is an amazing place, but it's not about me. I don't know if you recognize those 4 simple words, Kurt, but
That's good.
I'm really comfortable talking about how amazing Brant Ave is and the type of leadership that I've used while I've been there. But I really want to make sure that the highlight that Brant is an amazing place because of the people there, and the staff and the students and the parents.
Awesome. Spoken like a true servant leader, if I can just reflect back to that. And let me build on that I don't think Mike or I claim, and I'm going to speak on your behalf because we've had this chat, Mike.
Yeah.
Mike and I don't claim to have any kind of, knowledge or claim to be the smartest or biggest voices on this conversation. We are just 2 good-looking guys with long hair having a conversation about servant leadership, and it's something that we're both passionate about. So we're going to welcome everybody into the conversation later on. We've got a few questions to get us going. At no point do Mike and I claim to have any kind of exclusivity over this conversation. In fact, I think both our collective goal, if I can, Mike, is to seeing other people exploring this conversation more around what servant leadership looks like. So does that resonate okay with you, Mike?
100%, yeah.
Yeah. Before we jump into the questions with Mike, would anyone like just to share, or can they describe any leadership styles that they're reflected on from teachers that this had an impact on them? Would anyone like to share any based on those questions we had before? What teachers made an impact on you, or how would you describe their leadership style? Anyone like to share anything?
Sharing can be intimidating in front of a large group. One of the things we know is that if someone goes first, it encourages other people to share. So I don't mind sharing first. And I can say one of the teachers that influenced me quite a bit was someone, I'm not going to name them. I think they're retired now. They were my grade 11 math teacher. And they, I'm pretty sure I got the sense from the very first day of school, they didn't like me. They didn't want me in their class. And I was a problem for them. And I really liked math, but this teacher didn't like me. So it was a long course. And I learned a lot about how quickly someone can destroy, they can use their power and their position of authority to suck the love of learning out of an environment.
Right.
And I can also say that some of the teachers that inspired me to be better humans and to be a better human and to be a kinder and more patient person. I'll give a shout out to Greg Stewart, who was my teacher in grade 7.
Awesome. Teachers have such a profound impact on people. Would anyone else like to share? Again, no pressure, but wave your hand if you'd like to share anything there. Glenna.
My teacher that had the biggest impact on me opened up my mind to possibilities that I didn't consider. So to me, growing up in a 400-person town in rural Saskatchewan, my parents opened up very few sort of career options and life options. You know, I was either going to marry a farmer or actually be a teacher was one of them, or be a nurse. But I had a teacher that just really opened up my mind to the world and things that I could achieve. My grade 8 teacher. So that made a huge impact on me.
And how, briefly, Glenda, how would you describe your leadership style?
Encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say cheerleader. I guess that's the same as,
yeah, that's good,
as encouraging, but yeah, I don't know how else to word it, but helping you believe in yourself, inspiring.
Yeah. Awesome. Excellent. Nice, Glenda. Anyone else like to share? No pressure, just want to, Glenn, yes.
Hey there, I'm Glenn McMillan. I'm the head of the math department at GCBI. And
Welcome.
Thank you. So I get to work around teachers all the time. And so speaking as a colleague, I'd say the best teachers I've worked with are the teachers that are collaborative, the ones that aren't trying to push their own agenda, that they're just trying to go through and really listen to your ideas, incorporate them. They also speak up and on their own behalf, of course, and advocate for what they think is right. But there's that give and take, and so it doesn't feel like a one-way sort of relationship.
Right. Brilliant. Awesome. Excellent. If you have any comments or thoughts on that, by all means, throw them in the chat. And if you start to think about questions you'd like to throw out to Mike, or comments you'd like to have with all of us on the conversation today, you can drop those in the chat, and Delbert will be keeping an eye on those for us. So why don't we jump into our, thanks for that. Let's jump into our chat with Mike, and let's start at the basics. Mike, what drew you to teaching?
I think I saw, one, I like learning. I like children. And growing up in school, I had a very mixed experience. And I had that experience of being a student that sometimes when teachers took time to get to know me and had a connection with me, I found myself thriving and being interested. And when teachers didn't, I was probably not the nicest or not the easiest student to have in the class.
Right.
So I think that teaching, to me, I saw a lot of just an opportunity to have a big impact on young minds. And I loved when I was teaching in the classroom. I loved my job. I used to always say it was a 10 out of 10. It was challenging and stressful and overwhelming and constantly learning. And I moved around to different grades and different divisions by choice. And I love those challenges. Yeah.
So let's talk about that. And we're going to circle back to that journey you went on. How does, as your career has evolved a bit, how has this idea of servant leadership woven through that? And, was that something you actually thought about as you started your teaching career? Like, was that a concept that you were aware of, or how did that awareness along your career path from classroom into administration, or how did that journey, or how did servant leadership weave in and out of that?
Yeah. So I think I was always, I remember my very first principal. I remember watching them and seeing how stressed they were. And they used to carry a large basket of paperwork home every day.
Right.
And they struggled to, it would be in both their arms would be full, and they'd look kind of frazzled, and they'd carry it out to the car. And the next day I'd see them carrying that same basket back in. And I remember being like, yeah, I definitely don't want that job. Only if it's only for that physical challenge of I don't want to have that much stuff to carry around. That just seems like too much physical effort. Now, thankfully, I started teaching in 1999, and we've had some technological advances since then. So I still carry a ton of documents with me, but they all fit on a laptop or they're up in the cloud. So I guess I still have work that I'm bringing home. But yeah, I think I've always responded and appreciated when bosses of mine have treated me with respect, and valued my input. And to be honest, like a phrase came up probably while I was a vice principal. I read a book called Good Boss, Bad Boss.
Yes.
I really like the book, and I'd highly recommend it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it specifically talks about servant leadership, but it does talk about the common mistakes that new leaders make and how to avoid them. And the one phrase that stuck with me was, don't be a boss hole. And I found that to be like a theme that kind of ran through what I was doing. Because I thought I've had boss holes before. Like there are people that, I didn't do my best work with them. I wasn't inspired.
Right.
I hated going to work. And this isn't as a teacher. This is before I worked in the IT field for a bit. And I remember people who use their position of authority and power to be in charge over me and kind of put me in my place and use that to use their positional authority. I didn't like it. It didn't make me feel good. And I don't want to be someone like that.
Right. So is that a link for you back to this idea of servant leadership? And how do you describe servant leadership in your context in education?
So to be totally transparent, I don't think before I started following your blog and chatting with you, I wouldn't have said servant leadership was what I would define as my leadership style. I would have said more like I'm a coaching leader.
Right.
And I try to, but like one of the things I love is that expression, it's not about me. And when I, dug more and learned more about servant leadership I definitely think there's a whole bunch of parallels and overlap that sort of align for me. So thinking, I look at at the staff at Brant, and they are competent professionals who they don't need, I don't think anyone really needs someone yelling at them, but they don't need to be, have things enforced or pushed on them. I see them as, they're performers. They are they're the talent. And my job is to help them.
Interesting. Right.
So what resources do they need from me? What if they have questions, how can I help them so that they can do their best and to do their best to ultimately support our students,
right,
academically, but also emotionally and psychologically.
So what does servant leadership look like for you kind of day to day in drill down on some of that, the ways what you're describing there in terms of what servant leadership looks like in a busy, vibrant, amazing community that you've got at Brant? What does that look like day to day? Can you give us some examples?
So here would be there's simple things. Oh, that's my 11-year-old. I think she's, we just bought hi Libby. We just bought an above ground pool at Canadian Tire on sale. So it's been a big hit in our house.
Big weekend. Is it up yet, or are you putting it
it's up? Yeah.
Oh.
But I don't trust it's, I think there's a reason you shouldn't buy the cheapest pool you can find at Canadian Tire that holds 16,000 liters of water. I'm not sure, but I'm a bit worried. So right now you're allowed to swim, but you can't touch the edges.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's
something.
Yeah.
So day to day, staff would, it is a busy environment. So for people that haven't been in the education scene in a while, since you've been in school, the traditional model for a principal might be to be the disciplinary in the office, right? So kids do things and they get sent to the office to get in trouble. And then, that's the principal's job, and then to spend money and to hire people. I do my best to make sure that I get my tasks done, but I spend more of my day talking and building relationships, whether it's with students or with staff or with parents. And I find that I'm very relationship driven in terms of checking in with staff, seeing how they're doing. So I know like one example, and I think there's different leadership styles that I use at different times, but
That's interesting.
like there needs to be sort of a flexibility to how you respond to things, I think. But a good example would be when I'm walking through the school, there have been times where I've seen staff who are having a bad day, and I have the time. It's a small enough school that I can say, hey, are you okay if I take your class over for a few minutes? You know, maybe you need like 5 minutes, and something as simple as that sometimes for a teacher is that that's what they need. And this isn't because I think they're doing a bad job. And it takes time to be able to do that in front of a group of kids, without undermining the teacher at all, or saying like, you need a break because obviously you're losing it right now. Get out of here. And I'm the guy in charge now. Like a big part of it is the approach I take, and saying to teachers, you know, how can I help right now? And we have a bunch of kids that have behavioral challenges at school. I see a big part of my job is helping kids learn from their mistakes. Kids make mistakes. Some kids make the same mistake a lot. And we need to find different ways. We don't just, you know, it's like teaching a math lesson. If a child doesn't get it the first time, they're not going to get it if you say it slower and louder. Like you need to change your approach. So, and it's the same with kids with behavioral challenges. What can I do? How can I help them learn from this? Repair the damage they might have done, and support them as young people who are learning and growing.
So it seems that like a lot of that starts from a place of genuine curiosity, right? Like, this is a concept I've been kind of thinking through around this idea of servant leadership, that, and one of the tenets I have is that servant leadership can help you clear your mind. And part of that is this idea that I can start to imagine why it's not about me, right? Like what's going on in your world that you know has caused that email to come in or whatever it is. Like that's not about me. So is there a place for curiosity, or that may not be the right word, but you're starting the conversation wondering about what's happening in that other person's world versus your immediate needs. Is that fair?
And so there's some, you know, phrases that I picked up along the way. One is always assume you don't have all the information. You know, when a parent calls and they are super upset about something, you know, it's not about me. They might be mad. They might be yelling at me. One of the things I worked with a principal a few years ago named Tara Topping, who just taught me so much about how to help parents, how to de-escalate tense situations and help parents and be on the same team and work through issues. So those are skills that I find, and remembering that it's not about me and keeping that perspective helps. Because I find that I don't really have a temper, I guess. I don't get mad very often, although my daughter's walking by. Do you think I get mad a lot?
No, not usually.
No, yeah, not usually.
Oh, look!
Wow,
that was risky, by the way. Well,
it was, and you know what? She has a ton of moxie, so she, that was very risky.
Well played.
Carry on, young one.
Well played. That's right. Here's your money. Yeah, here's your $20. Yeah.
I think that. So that curiosity, trying to think where's someone coming from. I try to, Wendy Donaldson, who people here on the Zoom here who've worked with Wendy, she has a great line, which is assume positive intentions. Right. So, you know, if someone, you know, something happens, a student gets sent to the office or a parent calls and they're upset or whatever the issue. Actually, I'll use one as an example, a very specific example. I had a parent call me about a year ago and say, my child just came home and the teacher made them crawl on their hands and knees and pick things out of the garbage. And I was like, wow, that sounds like a really horrible experience for your child. In my head, I'm like, well, this is a teacher that had just started at our school. And I was like, this isn't good. Like that doesn't sound right, but I'm going to assume positive intentions here. So what is happening here? And instead of being like, hey, we need to talk because this parent's really mad, why did you do that? Part of this is collecting information, having a relationship with the teacher, getting to know them. And and then kind of coaching them through. There's a good example of a situation that was not at all what the parent thought it was. The student completely fabricated almost every element of that, except for the part where the student threw someone else's water bottle in the garbage. And the teacher said, "Oh, that wasn't very kind. You probably need to get that back to them." And the student's like, "Well, she made me pick things out of the garbage on my hands and knees." Well, no, she made you get the other child's water bottle that you threw in there. That seems like a pretty logical consequence. And the parent was very appreciative of that clarification.
I love that example. So how did servant leadership help you manage that?
Well, I think to speak to that.
Yeah. So sorry. How did servant leadership help you manage the parent, the staff, your teacher, the staff person, and then the student as well? Can you what do you draw on to help walk through that?
Right. So again, so it was trying to illustrate that whole assuming positive intentions. And thinking that the parents looking out for their child, the teacher is, I'm going to assume there's a reason why what happened. And in the end, for sure, the teacher did ask a child to go into the garbage with the intent of helping that child learn from their mistake and repairing that relationship and returning the piece of property that was taken. Right. So for me, it's that relationship piece, and helping then, my goal then is to help the parent and the teacher connect, because the parent hadn't met the teacher yet. The teacher was brand new at the school. So they hadn't even connected yet.
Right.
And the parent made some assumptions about what kind of teacher is this. And that was, sort of helping them navigate that. The relationship was repaired for everyone. And moving forward, the student realized that maybe telling the whole story the first time is a good thing to do.
Might have cleared up a little bit. I got a few more questions for Mike. If you have questions or thoughts that you'd like to, or conversations you'd like to be having collectively as a group, I encourage you to throw those into the chat. If there's anything that's coming up in our conversations you want to drill down on, throw us a note there. We'll circle back to that. While we're waiting for those, Mike, I want to come back. This idea of relationship is so critical in servant leadership, isn't it? And one of the things that I want to, and I've so admired you for, is, and I've seen how you've done this, is you've built relationship and you've acknowledged the energy that it takes to build relationships. Your staff in terms of building relationships with students, and then community, and their parent community. And talk to us a bit about that the connection between building relationships and managing our own energy as servant leaders. And you've been so good and honoring and supportive of your staff in terms of giving them permission to manage their own energy, because it does take energy to build relationships, even for high octane guys like you and I. At some point, we all get drained, right? So how do you help people manage their energy levels while still being focused on helping build relationships?
I think part of this is knowing the staff, especially after 4 years. So I know the staff really well,
right.
and I think they know me really well. They know what to expect. I have, in education, we talk about differentiating for our students. So some students have different needs than others, and with the staff as well. There's certain staff that I know. For example, I sent out an email yesterday about report cards. And those of you who are educators listening to this, there's a wave of exciting information that just got sent from the ministry that I was on that conference call this morning. That information, as exciting and overwhelming as it might be, and not to scare you, don't go rush and read your email right now. It's okay. But it's a lot to process and to get our head around, because there's, I don't know if everyone else noticed, but it is a global pandemic right now, and things are different. So I sent out an email to the staff yesterday and said, listen, this is the email that we've been waiting for. Please, before you read this, I want you to take to be a star. So that's a star is stands for smile, take a breath, and relax. And that is a strategy that we teach kids in our school. It's from a program called Conscious Discipline that we've done a lot of work around.
Yes.
It's sort of a trauma-informed approach to supporting students. So the STAR breath is something that we have a staff, it's like, before you dig into a really big email, and I know, I mean, that message is for specific staff members who I know this is going to overwhelm them. They've been asking about report cards for quite a while. And part of me, we talk quite a bit about our own stress levels and managing that. A big piece in a stressful school environment is kids can become dysregulated and they can be overwhelmed and they can have outbursts. But the one thing that we work really hard on at Brant is when we control ourselves as the adults, when we are the role models and we are regulating ourselves and we're modeling for kids like, I'm feeling kind of stressed, I need to take a breath right now, or kind of slow down. That has this great impact on our students, but it also just makes us feel better. So
it's good modeling, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So that's something that it's that, mindfulness piece, like mindful teaching and being aware. When you're in the middle of a lesson and a student throws a marker, teachers have in a split second hundreds of different ways that they can react to any given situation.
Right.
And there are some methods that work really well, and that's often driven by those relationships you have with those students. Mm-hmm. There's other things that don't work very well, and the unfortunate part is that supply teachers usually figured those methods out really quickly.
Right.
Right.
Right. Well, they don't have that relationship either, do they? I mean, supply teachers, a tough gig, right? Like,
yes,
you're walking into and this is a guy who'd never have the courage to be one, right? Like, that's a tough gig. You're walking into an environment you have no control over, kids you don't know, well-intentioned notes, and you got tough gig.
Yeah.
I want to, we got a great question about, I encourage you to keep your questions coming into the chat room there. We'll get to that. Mercedes has got a great one there. I've learned a lot through this concept of conscious discipline, and full disclosure, Mel, my beautiful, talented wife, has done a really deep dive around conscious discipline. And I think it's fundamentally changed how she has, her behavior, how she manages behavior in her classroom. And she's done some great work on behalf of the board collectively around this. Really quickly, Mike, can you just give us like a 35,000 foot overview of conscious discipline? Because I think, and Mel was doing this back in the fall when I was just thinking about 4 simple words, and I kept thinking, that's servant leadership. That's really interesting. Can you just give us a really quick overview of that conscious discipline model?
Yes. So a big part of it, conscious discipline is it's an approach that is about being really intentional with our language and how we interact with kids to model for them so starting with ourselves, how we model for kids how to handle stress and how to respond and how to share and how to be a part of a community. There's a whole bunch of strategies. It is a giant book that it is for educators in Ontario. It's usually not very well known. It is very big in the southern states. So it came out of Alabama,
yes, right.
And it has a huge following. I think the entire state of Alabama has adopted this as their main social emotional learning program. So SEL is what they call it in the States. But it's an approach. And I don't know if I'm even doing justice because I wasn't prepared to talk about it.
No, well, that's welcome to live television.
I like it. But I will say that it has had a huge impact on our school.
Yes.
It aligns really well with Ross Green's work, and
yes.
that looking at kids, and there's no bad kids. There are kids that are making mistakes, and we can help support them. And our job is to help kids learn from their mistakes. So a big part of it, the messaging and the language around it, it has. I don't know. I'll give a shout out to your wife. Mel was a great teacher before, and when she got into the program initially, and I think she was the one that told me about it. We started listening to the podcast and ordered a book, and we were excited, and we started a book study. It's impressive to see a really effective teacher take this program and kind of it ups their game as well. So
I think Mel would, and never speak on behalf of my wife, having learned that lesson. My observation would be, a great teacher got even greater through this discipline. So again, for those of you in the sector, if you're not there, a great learning around that conscious discipline. And again, for me, the principles are really, really similar to this idea of servant leadership, and it's not about me. Because the flip of that is, and there's a whole chapter in this upcoming book that we're all working on together here, it is about me, because I need to start with myself and regulating my own emotions and how I'm reacting to things. So that's where a lot of this does start. So thanks for that. Mercedes has put a great question here, Mike, into our chat. And it's very contextualized, obviously, in terms of this world that we're living in, the fact that we're all doing this virtually. How are you maintaining relationships with your teachers and students during COVID? What is that looking like for you as a servant leader? It's a great question.
Yeah, I'd say those are great questions. So Brant got out of the gate pretty quickly. The staff, we have a very strong camaraderie and respect for each other. So really quickly, we got, I sent emails out over March break saying, hang in there, this is going to be different. And we scheduled a Google Meet together and got everyone kind of so that we could see each other. Google Meet is like, for those who aren't familiar, it's Google's answer to Zoom, and it's what our school board's using. So we've had a lot of check-ins. We have every single day at 10 o'clock, we started a coffee time, which is just a casual chance for anyone to drop in and just chat and stay connected. It's a small thing. And there are days that I show up and I'm the only one there. And there are days that I can't make it, and staff will be like, hey, I'm here by myself. And they text out. We stay in contact. So between phone calls and emails and texting and Google Meets, we try to stay connected a lot. It has been surprisingly busy for the last 7 weeks, considering that I don't actually have to go into the building every day. But there's just it feels like there's been waves of urgency that have been washing over us over these last 7 weeks, between getting out Chromebooks to all the families, and right now we're in the middle of trying to coordinate all the parents of the school to come into the building to get students' personal belongings. But the question that I'm really interested in is how are staff maintaining relationships with students. One of the things that we did, and it is, I'm just going to say, it's super dorky and has been very effective. We started a YouTube live stream. So every Wednesday at 11 a.m. You've seen, your wife was on it.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you have not yet picked up a subscription to Brant TV, make sure you do. It is solid gold. It is brilliant.
Thanks, Chris.
Yes, it really is.
It's been a really playful and sincere way of connecting with our community. So for those of you who don't, I have a piece of software that I am running on my computer, so I can, if you've watched like a Jimmy Fallon show where he's at home and he brings in special guests onto the screen, I'm able to do that with up to 5 staff members at a time. So each week we have it's about 30 to 45 minutes, and we have staff coming on. The first week it was all theme around mental health. Actually, to be honest, before I did that, I tried just doing a live stream directly to students by myself, and that was like, I guess, the pilot episode. And I had my guitar was in the background, and the kids in the chat bar were like, "Oh, play us a song." And the song that I chose, because I wasn't prepared, was "Welcome to the Jungle" by Guns N' Roses, which is not a student-friendly song at all. And then I was like, "Oh, I shouldn't play this." So then my next choice, because this is the kind of music I grew up listening to, was "Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You" by Led Zeppelin. Also not at all the right choice for kids' music. So the week later, I came back and I had Baby Shark. I'd been practicing that, and I got "Here Comes the Sun" by the Beatles. So I had some better content. Since then, we've had each week we've had staff come on, share what's going on in their lives, and talk about their interests. And it's playful and fun, but it's also really sweet. And staff talk about how much they miss the kids. We're getting emails constantly from parents who are tuning in every week at 11 a.m., every Wednesday at 11. And their kids, it's a chance for the kids to see their teachers, to remember that, to be honest, kind of normalize living through a pandemic.
It's building relationships, isn't it, Mike? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I think that's been my big takeaway, just, watching it. And can you quickly tell us the software you're using for that? Because I'm thinking of my friends at Agscape, as you're starting to think about how you are going to engage groups. This is amazing. Like Mike looks like he's Jimmy Fallon, and he's pulling people on and off, and it's really, really well done. And if Mike can do it, well then,
Exactly. That's true. It's called StreamYard, and it is a browser-based, so StreamYard, one word. It's a browser-based video studio that lets you push out to YouTube, or you can push out to Facebook, or you could push out to LinkedIn live video, which I'm still not even sure. Like, I didn't know LinkedIn had live video. I didn't know that was an option. So I am not broadcasting on LinkedIn yet. But yeah, it is
figure out those rights, and it's all, big fame and fortune's only days away.
Brand TV, if you're going to watch it, and I can put a link in the sidebar if people are interested to go back and watch past episodes. The highlight for me so far, I mean, there's been a few awesome things, but it's the staff sharing a really vulnerable side to themselves.
Yes.
And it's playful, but it's sincere. And one staff member, Kurt, this is your wife. She dug up a nose whistle and played the Spider-Man theme song on a nose whistle. And honestly, like it was just like heartwarming and like
or super
weird.
Embarrassing, depending upon how you look at it. But yeah, it was
sure.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like, we also have a K-6 school.
Yeah.
And the kids loved it. They loved it. Parents loved it. And it's a way for us to stay connected with our students.
Yeah. And just to tie it back to this idea of servant leadership again, one of the many reasons I really admire Mike is there, and he is holding court, right? Like, he's bringing everybody together. He's facilitating, and he's certainly engaging. And he's handing it off, and he's celebrating all the neat things that his staff are doing. Mel did play the nose flute, and if teaching doesn't work out, she's got a musical career ahead of her. There was this teacher there who, goats,
Goats, yep.
Goats, plants, animals. The beauty, and again, the act of servant leadership, just to bring it back to the conversation, this grounding concept, is Mike created this space, safe, engaging, really creative, and then he hands it off to people, and he celebrates them, and then brings it back in and celebrates someone else. So as an act of just servant leadership, it's not the Mike show. It very much is Mike creating this environment where other people can come in, be celebrated, and the engagement. The other cool thing about this for teachers, and again for Agscape, the students are interacting with each other because you can see your chats, right? You have to log in with Google, so it's all very transparent. Very powerful tool.
Yeah, and I can bring student comments up on the screen.
Yes, right.
So students are commenting, and to be honest, not all of it's always on task or on topic. I will share this. One student said something that was like mildly inappropriate. It wasn't a swear word, but it wasn't the kindest thing. So I'm able to block them, and then I followed up and talked to their mom and said, "This is something that." Just wanted to let you know that we had to talk about it. And that the student was like, "I'll never watch Brand TV again. I'm so sorry. I've made a horrible mistake." And I was like, I had a phone call with the little guy and on speakerphone with his mom. And I said, "Buddy, you didn't make a horrible mistake. You made a small mistake and you were being silly, but this is a chance to learn. And what I need you to be on Brand TV as a grade 5, using your positivity and encouragement. People are taking risks right now." And the student wrote the phrase, "This is cringy," while one of the staff was presenting, and I blocked them because that's not a nice thing to say, and I helped the student learn from that mistake.
Well done.
Peter asked a question about was it organic creation or did it originate from you and build a staff? I think it started with me really wanting to try YouTube streaming, and I did it first with just parent council's children. And that was successful, except for the Guns N' Roses. And then I moved to, I did it just for the primary students, and then I tried the junior students and staff. The timing was the next week. It was Mental Health Week. And so Amy Fonte, our CYC, she and I were talking, and we it grew. And then I started inviting staff, and people were like, "Yeah, I'm next. I've got it. Like, let me know."
Right.
So we've done 4 weeks. I think we've gone through all the staff members that are interested, which is like 95% of them. A few didn't want to be on camera, and that's okay. Actually, a bunch didn't want to be on camera and then said, "Yes, I'll do this because I see the value of it." So I think we're
Awesome.
going to start having repeat guests. So you might see
It's-
another nose whistler.
We can only hope. We can only hope. We got about 9 minutes left. Questions, other questions you'd like to share with Mike, or conversations you'd like to start with us as a group, either in the chat or put up your hand, and any comments or questions you'd like to share with Mike or each other around this idea, anything about anything we've heard today. Anybody? While you're thinking about it, Mike, let's come back to this idea of always assuming the best. I really like that that mantra in terms of how it comes back to servant leadership and how you act in the classroom. That can be really hard sometimes. Can it not? Or is that a natural place, a natural start for you?
Yeah, it's pretty comfortable for me.
Okay.
Assuming positive intentions.
Right, positive intentions, yeah.
Look, I think, yeah, it's something that wasn't a big stretch for me. My wife will often tease me and say that I see the good in everyone, and that I think sometimes, I mean, that life approach, if I'm going to reflect publicly here, that, you know, you could argue that you're putting yourself at risk of being taken advantage of.
Right.
That is not something that I've ever had to worry about in leadership at Brant. Yeah. So assuming positive intentions, part of this also is that comes from years of working with kids. And when a student makes a mistake, seeing that as they're just a small human that's still learning,
Right.
they're not a bad person.
Right.
Right. Like, and I don't know, are we allowed to swear here?
I don't
know. Okay. But you think, like, so if someone cuts you, this is a small thing, but someone cuts you off in a car, right? And they do something that you're like, wow, that's, you know, super selfish. That part of that, you can be like, that person's a jerk, I can't believe they're a horrible person. You can be like, they must be having a rough day.
That's right. That's right.
So, like, they're still a human. That something's going on with them, and maybe they are someone that goes through life and all they ever do is cut people off in cars and give you the finger, and that's just how they roll, and that's probably not someone I want to hang out with.
Right.
But I just think about, and that if I remember correctly, it's the attribution error. We often think other people's mistakes are a representative of their personality, and our mistakes are representative of the situation. Right. So understanding that attribution fallacy is recognizing that people make mistakes and that doesn't make them a bad person. And that's really easy with kids, I find. I don't know many adults who would see a child who made a mistake and be like, that kid's an ass. Like, they're what a horrible human. People don't say that about kids. I think it's easier.
We do that to ourselves, though, don't we?
Yeah, we can.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we can do it to other adults a lot quicker.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, it's good. Kind of building on that, and maybe from some of your experiences, there's a great question from Andrea. Can you give us an example, Mike, of a leadership setback you've had, and maybe frame that around, and if so, how did you proceed, get it back on track, and maybe if you can frame that back into how servant leadership may have helped with that. So setback you've had, how you got it back on track, and maybe the link back to servant leadership.
Okay, so I'm just trying to, this is from Andrea Higgins, yes?
Moyer.
Oh, see, I'm not seeing that in the chat, so I just wanted to go back.
Oh, you know what? Sent to me privately. Sorry.
Sent to you privately.
Yeah, that's how we roll here, just to keep you on your toes, right?
Sneaky back channel.
So the question is, Evie, talk to us about a leadership setback you've had. How'd you get it back on track? And then my addition to that is, how has servant leadership helped you with that?
Yeah, so a setback. Okay, so like early on in my career, I remember I made mistakes as a vice principal. I've made mistakes as principals as well. I like to try to remind everyone that I'm learning, and I really think that one of the things, if I can give a plug for Brant, one of the things that makes it such a special place, and yes, there's awesome people, but everyone is constantly learning. The staff
Right.
are learning all the time and evolving, and it creates this sense of excitement. It's an exciting building to be part of. We work a lot with our community partners. In terms of my mistake, and it's something that I learned from, I can tell you about the time that I thought like my job, when I was a VP at Westwood, this is going back 7 years ago, my first year, it was time to do a fire drill, and I told the principal, I want to do it all myself. I got this. So she was like, okay, this is good. Go for it. So I was getting my head, okay, I have to read the instruction that Paul, okay, how do I do this? I'm making sense of this, but I learn best by doing it and then reflecting on it. And I went and ended up, it took me some while. I had to call the fire department and tell them that we were about to do it. And then I had to call the alarm company and take the fire system offline so they didn't send the police or the fire department. In the end, I just was too slow. And when school was getting out at 3:15, it was 3:05, I think, when I actually did the fire drill. So you can imagine what happens when you pull a fire drill and parents are there all ready to pick their kindergarten kids.
Oh, nice.
And
Yes.
the absolute mayhem that ensues.
Oh,
when
dude, that's brilliant.
Children hear the bell, run outside, and mom's there, and they're like, I guess it's time to go. No, it's not. No, we have to do attendance still. We have to make sure. Oh, I really.
Oh, that's good.
And
so how did servant leadership, and I'm just conscious of our time, how did servant leadership help you through that or learn from that?
I mean, I went back and repaired those relationships with every single teacher.
Brilliant.
One-on-one, I went to every teacher and said, please forgive me. What I did to you and your students was totally unacceptable. And I'll never do that again. And I hope you understand that it wasn't me. Like, I
love that. And can I just quickly reflect back the importance of the one-on-one? Like, that's the other piece in terms of my own research and learning and experiences. It's one thing to fire off the email. That's really important. And then following that up with, hey, Mike, boy, didn't I look like a clown this afternoon? And owning that in front of people personally is such a great way to build that relationship. I'm really conscious of our time. We've got about 4 minutes left. Chad's got a quick question here around, do you, and I think you've answered this for us, do you see everyone in your building as a leader?
Yeah. I mean, I think Chad's, if this is Chad Ray, who's a good friend of mine, and I think this is a plant question, but Chad and I both, I think we have very similar styles, and we talk about this quite a bit, but he and I are part of a project to encourage leadership for everyone in the entire school system, so that all of us see ourselves as a leader and that we're all working towards a common goal. Yeah, he just wrote, yes, it's me.
Nice plant, Chad.
Yeah. And that wasn't I didn't know he was going to ask that question, but yeah, I think the more that we can, look, I think part of servant leadership is breaking down traditional authority structures where I'm the leader at the top of a pyramid. I'd rather, and it sounds dorky, but like some staff meetings, I like doing a community circle where we all sit in a big circle. Right. Instead of just me at the front talking at staff. Okay, we're in a circle. The first time I did it, none of the staff wanted to sit next to me. And I was like, awesome, this is good. So it's me on one side of the circle and everyone else. But, you know, the branch staff have got to know me, and now people sit next to me, which is really nice. I think that means that something's working well.
Or they just feel sorry for you, but you know, that's another conversation. That's our time. And I want to just quickly circle back and maybe just a few quick reflections. Just, you know, again, my own learning from this, and Mike, so grateful for your time. The importance of relationship, assuming positive intentions. That's a really good one, right? That's a really, really good one to be circling back to that. And then I think what I've seen through Mike's work, you know, as a leader at Mel School and just this conversation, is the sincerity and the genuineness that he comes to his leadership as well. You know, taking the time to go talk to people individually, understanding when staff are having a bad day, being able to recognize that, and just so gently walking, you know, saying, hey, take 10 minutes, go grab a coffee while I look at your classroom. That's the subtle, strong, you know, emotional intelligence, I think, that's attached somewhere around leadership as well. So I think there's lots of conversation around that. That is almost 2:00. Please join me in a round of applause for Mike Anderson and his sharing today. That was great. Mike, thanks so much.
Yeah, and listen, here's what I'll do. I do have a magic trick, Kurt, and people are welcome to stick around for it. But if
Awesome.
you have to go, like, my audience is, I am a really good magician for small children and people who have been drinking a lot of alcohol. So if you're neither of those right now, this might not go very well. But I'm happy to share
So,
one of my passions.
so we'll stick around for the magic trick. That quite frankly does sound exciting. Round of applause to Delbert for managing our technology today. Delbert, thank you, my friend. And my thanks to you all for taking time to join us on this conversation. As I say, it started out as just an idea and it's turning into something bigger and exciting. And I'm just so grateful for your time. I've seen the future and it is asking and demanding more servant leadership. And I don't know what that looks like yet, but I encourage us all today to go forth. And as we think about being change agents in our schools, in our homes, and in our communities and businesses, places of faith, I'm convinced that servant leadership has a role there. So it's Forcible Words that brought us together today. My departing ask of you is to think about what one word have you taken away from today, and just to plant that seed with yourself. And hopefully that's a word you can activate on and think about around what good servant leadership looks like for you and your family and your community. So again, my sincere thanks for being a part of this today. Join us at forciblewords.ca, where you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and our YouTube channel, which this will be posted probably Tuesday, Wednesday of next week, and we'll send you all a link as well. You'll get an email this afternoon asking for your feedback on this. Any and all comments and feedback welcome and really appreciated. We want to make these empowering and meaningful sessions. So with that, I'm going to say thanks, and I'm now handing it back to the talented Mike Anderson. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Mr. Magic. All right, Mike, what do you got for us?
I'm so glad that wasn't Magic Mike.
I wanted to go there, but I was good.
Thank you. Thank you. I thought I'd just do that for you. Listen, so Kurt, the whole time we've been talking, one of the things I've been doing really carefully is I've been trying to give you some hints about a card. So I want it, just try to clear your mind right now. And what card, playing card, what comes to mind?
Do you want me to say it?
I want you, well, this is the challenge of doing this trick through Zoom, but yes, I'd like you to say it out loud for everyone.
Okay. 4 of clubs.
Okay. So here's what we're going to do. This deck of cards, can you do me your very best? I'm going to try to do this. I'm going to turn to the side here. This deck of cards, the 4 of clubs, notice here in our cards, we're going to go, if you look really carefully, one of these cards stands out as being different. Would that be accurate?
That would be accurate.
Yeah. What? Ladies and gentlemen, the one special word I hope you remember today is magic.
Oh my God. Honestly, I don't know if you saw my mind being blown there, but seriously, another round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Now, Kurt, there's people probably are thinking that we had that prearranged. So it probably is not as impressive, but it's your authenticity there.
So I actually, I totally didn't know what the magic trick was. I knew it was coming up. I didn't even know I had to think about a card. My hand to God, my mind is blown here because literally I just said it. So he truly is a great servant leader and a great musician, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, thank you.
Mike.
And just a shout out, Peter LeBlanc, just so everyone knows, he's a colleague of mine from the Upper Grand District School Board, joining us from Belgium. So Peter, what time is it over there?
6 hours ahead, I bet. He's 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah, it's 8 p.m. here. So
okay,
it's gonna stay. It's nice. It's gonna stay bright till about 10:10.
Brilliant.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Well, go enjoy some Belgian beer.
Thank you. That's the plan.
Good to see you, Peter.
Everybody,
thanks Mike.
Again.
Really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Mike.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Enjoy your afternoons, and look forward to seeing you at forciblewords.ca. Take care, everyone. Thank you. Mike, that was great.
I thought so. I thought that went really well.
That was great.
Wait, are you talking about the magic trick?